We all want to be cared for and about, right? We want people to notice us and be there for us. It just feels good, doesn't it? But are we willing to do the same for others? Or are we just too busy and self-consumed with our own lives? Anybody ever feel this way? I know I have. Been there, done that. But what if I told you there's power, radical power in prioritizing what I like to call caring leadership? Some years ago, I worked at organization and customer experience, and I loved it. And then I found out there was going to be a merger of 4 companies to create one unified brand. Now, I'm sure you can imagine what that brought up. If you've ever been a part of a merger, you know they do anything but unify. Fear, anxiety, and some binge eating swept through the company. And people with titles very similar to those who were with the original company were hired. And so with zero communication coming from above, we did as humans do. We let fear and mistrust set in. And I could feel myself being dragged down by the negative cultural sentiment. And after scolding my husband and kids because the remote control wasn't exactly straight on the coffee table, I knew I had to do something about it. So I marched over to the head of HR and I told her exactly how I felt. And I was shocked because she said, "You're right." And for a minute I was like, okay, I'm feeling kind of important, until she shattered my self-illusion and said, "You should go do something about that." And I was like, me? In my mind, I lead customer experience, not HR. So I just stumbled out of her office to find a remote, any remote to straighten. But then it kind of made sense. I'd already been acting like an informal cultural ambassador. Whether people reported to me or not, I always tried to find a way to uplift them. And people on and off my team, they'd come to me to find out what the heck was going on. So I thought, I'm just going to take her up on her suggestion. So a week later, I created an employee engagement council, and I invited people from the 4 companies to come together to start to brainstorm and figure out how we can break down the walls of mistrust and really create more unity and engagement. And we started to meet, and we could see collaboration increasing, and we could see trust starting to take hold. But the merger wasn't going so well, and they had to do a lot of layoffs. And me, the new head of the Employee Engagement Council, I was one of them. Yeah, you heard me right. I was laid off. And while it hurt for some time, that experience helped me find my calling to do what I do today. That layoff changed my life. It helped me understand the power of caring leadership and how one person's choice to show another person concern and kindness could make such a huge difference. But I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't on the receiving end of caring leadership. Let's think of a normal layoff process, shall we? Maybe they send in a stranger to do the dirty work. Or maybe it's HR and they might be cold and distant. They might not even offer you resources, so you find yourself kind of begging for them. That layoff could have left me feeling small, abandoned, like I was a number. Like all the work I had done meant nothing. I'd feel my confidence just sink. And I'd have had a hard time really finding a positive path forward. But that's not how it went for me. On the day of the layoff, and for the weeks and months to follow, a handful of people did more than just show me pity. They demonstrated that they cared for me in their actions. Because caring leadership is only possible with action. Let me share with you a little bit more about that layoff story. Tensions in the office were high, and I had a sense layoffs were coming, and I had an inkling I was going to be on the list, and I was right. I got the invitation, and when the time came for the call, the person who was my manager for months before, she wasn't even on the call. But the gentleman who was my manager months before that, he was on the call. You see, he and we had a strong connection, and he seemed to really know how to lead me well. He always listened so attentively to my requests and responded appropriately. I remember hearing his voice on that call. "Heather, I'm so sorry. We have to lay off a lot of people. And I hate to do this, but we have to lay you off too." I could hear his regret. I could feel his pain. That deep expression of empathy made me feel cared for, like I was more than a number. I was a person who had value. And on that call, I told him, too, that I thought I had a bonus coming to me. And while he could have made a zillion excuses why I hadn't earned it, he made sure I got that bonus. He could have swept this call off to the newer manager because he knew it was going to be painful. He could have done what a lot of bosses do, abdicating responsibility because they have no clue what's happening on the receiving end. But he didn't do that. He chose to demonstrate caring leadership. And I could hear it in his voice, and I could see it in his actions. And I'll never forget how that made me feel. On the other hand, the manager who never even made the call, I never heard from her again. And I'll never forget how that made me feel. Which would you want to be? The person in the first example or the person in the second? Either way, you're going to be remembered. The choice is yours. There's more than one caring leader in this layoff story. Let me share some more. On the day of the layoff, I'm sitting close to one of my team members who I'd recently mentored, and as I hung up the phone, I walked over to her to tell her the bad news right before heading down to HR to finish the layoff process and just leave the building for the last time. For the weeks and months to follow, that team member, she followed up with me. She checked in on me to see how I was doing and how my kids were doing. Months later, and after I was unemployed still, I went to the mailbox and I opened it and I see an envelope from this team member. You know what I found in it? A $150 check with a note that said, "I hope you can use this to buy Christmas gifts for your kids." Wow. Just wow, right? She didn't have to make that choice. She could have kept things distant. She could have kept things awkward, never following up with me. She definitely didn't have to send me a $150 check. But she chose to be there with me in my suffering. And I'll never forget how that made me feel. Bad things seem to happen all at once, don't they? Kind of like sugar ants. Nothing for a year, and then bam, they're like swarming all around us. On that call with HR and my manager, I tell them that my husband had just quit his job 2 weeks before and that he insured our entire family of 6. I was just about to get insurance with this company. You know what the head of HR did? She went out of her way to make sure we were insured under the company's COBRA plan for the next 3 months. And get this, she picked up the bill. Wow. Just wow, right? She didn't have to make that choice. She could have shown me very little compassion. She could have said something like, "Oh, Heather, I'm so sorry, that's unfortunate, but you weren't insured with us, so there's nothing we can do." But she didn't do that. Instead, she leapt into action to make sure she put me at ease and that our family had that insurance. And I'll never forget how that made me feel. Lastly, I went to my church and talked to my pastor, and I am in tears. And he's listening to me so attentively. Here's the issue. My kids go to that school. And I'm afraid now I have to change schools and move them. But I didn't have to do that. You know why? He went out of his way to find a scholarship for my kids so that they could stay there. And he would then show our family that he valued us and that we got what we needed. And I'll never forget how that made me feel. Caring leadership is showing concern and kindness towards those who look to you for guidance. People often think that leadership is about a title, but it's not. Caring leadership is more about who you are as a person and how you show up. It's about how you make people feel. It's about human relationships and human connection. It's about uncovering the needs of others and using what you have to help them and support them any way you can. Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel." Listen, we don't just exist at home and at work. We take who we are everywhere we go to interact with family and friends and coworkers and those in our community, which really does mean we have the power to create a legacy of care that is long and lasting, not just for our lives, but for other lives as well. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so if you choose to be not just a leader, but a caring leader, I want to give you some simple examples of what this might look like and how you can demonstrate it in your actions. Okay, so here's an example. What if a friend of yours confides in you that their child is sick, and you follow up with a phone call? And maybe you send a toy or you drop off a meal, just so that they know they're not alone. Or what if you decide to throw an impromptu party for a coworker, just because they've given all these years of service to your team, and it's just so that they know that they're important to you? Or what if you're in a position at work where you can allow someone to take on a project and prove themselves, and when they do a good job, you show them sincere appreciation, just so that they know that you noticed? Listen, we don't need permission to show up with more care. Don't wait for the next person to do it. You do it first. Make it a priority and focus on others. Eventually, it just becomes who you are. It might take a little bit of work. You might have to open your heart and your arms and your mind. It just takes a little bit of time and attention. That's all it takes. The people in my layoff story had no idea I'd be standing on stages talking about how they made me feel cared for. But they made me feel that way nonetheless. I'm sure they have no idea that their choice to show me more care transformed me and helped me see my calling to help other leaders and organizations demonstrate caring leadership every day. That's their legacy. What would it look like for you to leave a legacy of care? One where you realize you touched someone's life in some way. It just feels good, doesn't it, when someone recalls a time when you left a gentle handprint on their life? We all have time for that, right? Here's the thing. It starts with you, and you, and you. It doesn't really matter who you were yesterday. It only matters who you choose to be today and going forward. You are the stone in the pond that can ripple out and touch so many lives. It can touch them. It can rejuvenate them. It can save them. Don't underestimate the power you have to make those in your presence feel cared for by the actions you take on their behalf. It starts with all of us. You have the radical power of caring leadership. Now go be the stones in the pond. Thank you.